You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional coach and matchmaker. If you haven't lately, go to wedeepen.com, check out all the upcoming social and transformational experiences. Wonderland Conference is coming up if you happen to be listening to this podcast pre-November of 2023. And also, if you're listening to this after, this content that we're going to share today is still relevant to the moment. Yes, in today's episode, I'm going to be diving into the new Love Club, and the first cohort of 36 people are about to embark on a journey to enliven their intimacy life. And I'm going to dive into that today with a special guest, Sarah Mack, who is my coach in this process. We're going to talk about the behind the scenes, the making of the Love Club, what the Love Club is. And again, if you happen to be listening to this after 2023, there will be more opportunities for you to join inside of the Love Club. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do rate, subscribe, like, follow it, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it, helps me continue to host it. And if you have been listening for some time, what you already know, if you know me at all in any way, shape, or form, is that I am obsessed with love and healthy relating. I think it's the solution to all the world's problems when humans can come together and overcome conflict, really discover what a true connection is between them and another human, the appropriate compatibility, I'll say, as well as being in states of practicing love. Love is a practice. You know, there's sometimes people will argue with me about that love is innate and everyone is born to love. And, you know, what we've seen in the crisis around us and a lot of tragedy happening right now, you know, again, this is the fall of 2023, that not everybody is born knowing how to love. As I said moments ago, it's definitely a practice and it's a way of living. To me, this is love equals life. And that is our evolutionary journey, is to, you know, repair the soul, repair what is holding us back from being the highest, greatest version of ourselves. And love being this process of removing layers of the ego, you know, fears, negativities, combined with ever increasing acts of sharing. So at the Love Club, you know, the 6-month matchmaking accelerator program, you are going to be able to practice love within a group. It's a group of people, I included, myself included, are going to hold you accountable to your love goals. Sarah, I know you're a podcaster yourself. You're pardon my language, everyone, a fucking amazing coach. It's been such a joy to work with you on this experience, and welcome to Deepen with Christina.
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with how you and I connected.
It's a good story.
I ran off to Burning Man this year. I've actually had the Love Club seated in the back of my head for some time, but I was, you know, I'd written a business plan about it. It is sort of the micro solution to We Deepen is like this macro solution to our love lives. And this is the micro solution. So this has been like spinning in my mind for some time. And I ran off to Burning Man this year. I met your husband there. Your husband ended up jumping into the magic school bus that I left Burning Man in. And I ended up in Venice, California afterwards. And he invited me to crash on your couch after Burning Man. This is pretty much in Burning Man style. And I remember thinking like, okay, you're married. Is your wife going to be okay that, this cute girl, wakes up and, doesn't even know who she is and wakes up in her house. And that's how we met. And I remember it was in the morning, you mentioned that you support coaches in launching their programs. And the Love Club, rummaging around in my head, I was like, oh, I wonder if she could help with the Love Club. And then probably 3 weeks later, we jumped on, I don't even think it was 3 weeks later, maybe like a week or so later, we jumped on the phone and I was like, yes, you're done, hired. Let's go. Let's do this. It was so your how you coach is so specialized. And it's been such a joy to work with you. So within a week period of time, the Love Club website was built and launched. And now we have submissions pouring in of people who are excited to join the club. So first off to start is like, what was that experience like for you that your husband goes to Burning Man without you and comes home with this woman who's sleeping on your couch?
Yeah, funny story. So I was mad when he came home, not because he brought you with him, but just because he came home so late and he like kept on walking into the bedroom and was like finding obviously like sleeping stuff for you. And I get so grumpy when people disturb my sleep. So I was just like, can you just like, I was like losing it, I was like, welcome home from Burning Man, like grumpy wife at home. And also context of my bad mood was at the beginning of that week, I discovered that our cats had fleas. So I was in the middle of what I'm now calling Fleagate. And I'd been literally like cleaning the apartment from top to bottom and like just like getting, like researching. I didn't know fleas was a thing in LA. Like people really need to give you a warning if you have animals and you move here. Like we just moved here in July. And so I had just cleaned the apartment top to bottom. I was so exhausted. And I was like, can you like get your ass home so that you can help me like continue with the 50 piles of laundry that I have stacked up to do because, cats go everywhere. And then, so yeah, that was my experience of him coming back from Burning Man. But it was so great to meet you. And I was like, oh, yay. My initial plan was to go to Burning Man. And then we thought I might be pregnant earlier this year. And I was like, oh, what if I'm pregnant? Will I still go to Burning Man? And I was like, you know what? Like that would be a no from me. And when I said that to myself, I just felt all this relief in my body. And that's when I realized I just didn't want to go to Burning Man this year. And so I felt so good about choosing not to go. Like I had long COVID for 6 months earlier in the year. And I had experienced a lot of physical discomfort this year. I was like, you know what? I just like want to be at home in my comfortable bed. And like, that's where I want to be at the end of August and September this year. So I was like very at peace with the fact that I hadn't gone, but I was so happy to meet you. Like I love it when we have people to stay. That's one of my favorite things. We both love hosting. And so, yeah, even though it was brief, I was like very grateful to meet you. And yeah, my experience was like, oh, when you signed up to work with me, I was like, great. Now I don't even need to leave the house to get clients. Like they show up on my couch. I'm like, this must be a sign that like, yeah. And I'm definitely experiencing a lot of alignment since moving to LA. Like I feel every time I leave the house, I meet someone who then becomes a client. I feel like I'm in the heart, like the epicenter of the community that I'm meant to serve through my work. And it feels really, really awesome. So yeah, I'm super happy that you decided to crash despite Albor's waking me up, getting the sheets for you to sleep on the bed.
It's so true. Venice, California is perfect for you because you can step out your door and throw a ball and you're hit a coach.
Yeah, right. Or a healer who's like struggling to put their magic into words. And that's literally my superpower. So
it is your superpower. You were so good with me. I mean, we jumped on an exploratory call. I remember I was walking into a restaurant at the time. I was like, yes, it was to do a first week with you. And that's what we've done this far. And I'm looking forward to continuing and doing another 2.5, 3 months all together with you. But in that first week, then we did a 90-minute call. We really dove into what I was aiming to create. And then for the next, 6 days, it was on Voxer where these like voice texts would come in, like a stream of voice texts in within like a 30-minute period of time. And you're direction, it was, you are a coach, but you're definitely a consultant too. Because it was you had strong opinions on what works and what brings people in. And also too is what I want to be clear of, because there is a sales process, but it's more of presenting what the value proposition is, and how you are going to bring people through a transformation. And for me, of what you were able to even pull out of me is my own personal transformation of the past decade, having started working in dating in 2014, and now to feeling like by the time I was done and this website was created and I laid down all the logos and got my story out, I felt even greater confidence that this is exactly what I should be doing. And so excited to share this with other people and to show them that like your love life and your intimacy journey can be a wildly eventful, fruitful, exciting, growth-oriented experience. So yeah, genius. You're genius at this. And I want to go into your work and how you became so good at this. But prior to getting there, because this is Deep In with Christina and we love to talk about love. I would love to hear the background story of how you and Boris, your husband, met. And because I know the story and it's really good. And then also how you came to let him free to go to Burning Man by himself. A lot of people would have hangups on that. It's like there would be jealousy or, I've been in relationships at times where I'll be in the same room with somebody and maybe feeling a little insecure about a connection or what our connection is. Or maybe it's a too ambiguous in the moment and feeling like I'm observing, like, what's he up to? And here he just flew off to Burning Man without you. So let's start in either direction. Which one you think is most important?
Okay. Yeah, I'll answer the Burning Man question first. I think, we definitely had a conversation before, I was like, let's just talk about boundaries and have that conversation before you go to Burning Man. And I was like, what, will you do if someone invites you to a sex party, and do you want to go? And he was like, well, yeah, obviously I'm interested, but that doesn't work for our relationship. And I was like, okay, fine. And we've had this conversation a couple of times. So we've been together for 11 years this December. We've been married for 6. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, to finish answering that question, there's just such a deep level of trust. And we have really open communication. And, because of the way that he has shown up in our relationship, I feel so secure. And I think, to rewind to how our relationship started, I put an ad on Craigslist for a roommate when I was doing my master's in Montreal. And he was the only person that answered. He showed up. I was like, so we had this really great apartment in the Plateau. It's the old part of Montreal. And it had 3 bedrooms. I took the tiniest bedroom in the back. My best friend took the second smallest bedroom. And then we had this big bedroom at the front that we just front loaded all of the rent on. And we initially had this other guy. We were like, great. If you pay the rent for this big bedroom, we can afford to live in this really great apartment. He didn't love the apartment, but he was really looking for roommates because he had been living alone. He just moved to Montreal and he just wanted to have that experience. And testament to my writing skills, I was really specific in who we were in the ad. And, I was like, we collect disco balls. We love having dance parties. We love having conversations about feminist philosophy, and just really gave a clear picture of who we were. And he was really into that. And he was the only person that applied, but he said when he came, he just really connected with me and my housemate and wanted to move in. And So I didn't really connect with him in that initial interview. I was really just like trying to sell the room and get someone to fill it. But the day he moved in, or the day I was away when he moved in, I arrived back and he like knocked on my door to wake me up. I'd been to a party the night before, and I remember I looked into his eyes and I like instantly fell in love with him. Mm-hmm. And I told my friend at the time, I was like, I'm in love with my new roommate. But I'm not going to go there because that's a recipe for disaster. I was in an open relationship at the time. But I kind of unconsciously immediately turned off the guy I was dating, and I broke up with him. And so me and Albers were hanging out for 3 months, and we became really good friends, and we were just hanging out and having a great time together. He didn't make a move on me. I knew that he was kind of like casually seeing some people. And then my roommate went away for Christmas and we hooked up. And I was like, maybe this is just going to be like a Christmas thing. And then I knew the girl that he had been seeing was arriving back, and I just kind of like churned my stomach. And so that's when I sat down and had the conversation of, if we're going to keep seeing each other, I was like, I'm definitely interested in continuing to see you. And like no pressure, no expectations, one day at a time. But because we live together, this has to be exclusive. Like I can't have you, like that's going to screw with my head if I know that you're sleeping with other people. And he was like, yeah, I definitely want to keep seeing you, like obviously one day at a time. And because we both loved living in the apartment, like we were sharing it with my best friend, Ali, we knew we had to like not screw this up. So that kind of put a lot of pressure on us to just have like really open and clear and honest communication. And that was really the foundation of our relationship. And, we were in that phase where we were all studying a lot of philosophy and just like having long conversations around the dinner table with people from all over the world who are studying in Montreal. Like it was such a good time. And we were questioning everything, and so we questioned relationships a lot. And we were, ironically decided we would never do long distance because it's, such a burden and like a waste of energy. And then we both graduated, and because he's from Iran, but he grew up in Toronto, and I was initially working in film in Vancouver. So when we graduated, our lives kind of went in different directions. And then we ended up in Bali. And then he came back to the US for medical school. And there was a period of 6 months where we didn't see each other. And we would like, he had moved to the US at this point. I didn't have status there. I was trying to move to the US. But, we had the conversation then like, oh, we don't know when we're going to see each other again. Do we want to open the relationship? And that was something that neither of us wanted. Like I was in the middle of a giant burnout. I was just really trying to take care of one person, let alone deal with more people in my life. And so I think we're both just very monogamous people. And we're both really committed to each other. And, we did 7 years of international long distance before I finally settled in the US. I got my green card in 2021. It took me 4 years to go through the green card process because it closed down during the pandemic, all of the embassies and everything. But we got married so that I could apply for my green card. But we knew, like, we were really clear from early on that we wanted to spend our lives together. And that's just always been the theme, is like, even though sometimes it was really, really hard to stay in the relationship because of the barriers and the distance, like it was just always a really clear yes for both of us. And I just feel really lucky to have found that. And, I'd never had any experience like that before I met Albors.
I love how clear you are about what you want and saying it up front. It's interesting because you are also, having these philosophical conversations, and of course, relationship comes into play. How is it that you knew that you wanted a monogamous relationship? And I'm going to stack questions. I know we don't necessarily stack questions, but to stack a question on top of that is it that he wanted a sexually monogamous relationship? Because there's I'll say there's all forms of monogamy. Monogamy is not just a sexual monogamy. There's also emotional monogamy, financial monogamy, social monogamy. I would actually question it. It's almost like you're not fully socially monogamous because he went off to Burning Man. So there's some freedom inside of that relationship. It sounds, and correct me, is that there's a sexual monogamy component to your connection. How did you know that was something that is important to you?
mainly because it made me feel really insecure, thinking that he would be sleeping with somebody else. Yeah, like it was literally a visceral feeling in my stomach. And I think, yeah, I mean, I haven't explored my sexuality a ton. Like I've questioned it and I've been open, and yeah, I've like experimented a little bit, but something like, I don't know, I'm always just clear on what feels good to me. And I'm just kind of like a follow the path of least resistance person. And I tried to have an open relationship, but it like took effort for me. I've always been quite monogamous. And I definitely think there's like a cultural difference between North America and like Europe and Iran. Like I think Europe tends to be, or like Britain. I've heard people say the same thing about France, even though I know that there's like obviously tons of different experiences, but just like, yeah, like the dominant kind of like cultural narrative and value that we just have grown up in without questioning a lot, especially when I was growing up, was just like, yeah, it's less exploratory. It was less exploratory for me growing up in the UK than I've seen since I moved to North America. And I think Iran also has like a very strong culture of monogamy and like finding a partner and settling down, like committing and, really valuing family life. So I think we just kind of like unconsciously those values matched in our relationship. But yeah, to answer your question, I'm very sensitive and I just like pick up on a lot of things. And I think I knew when his other girl was back in town, and I had this, just like my stomach dropped, and I just knew that I didn't want to constantly be picking up on that and like thinking, I didn't want that to be taking up space in my head, in my own home. I think it might have been different if we hadn't lived in the same place, but I just knew that it was kind of like an energetic hygiene thing more than anything else, is that I didn't want to have to be processing that and like questioning and yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
Good for you. I see so often these days that people want monogamy, but they also, there's this like extreme. They don't want anyone to feel trapped or caged anymore. So they might be like, okay, well, I want you to be yourself and to be open. But then I'll see these relationships that they'll play that way. But then the person comes back and they've kissed somebody else, and then the triggering happens. And then there's like this emotional processing. And I have a friend in a situation like that. I remember saying to her, babe, why don't you just tell, this is a woman dating another woman. Why don't you just tell her that you love her lips and you want them to be yours, instead of pretending that you can be so open when it just is eating you up inside and throwing you off course and throwing you off your center. So congratulations for being so true to who you are and to know that about yourself and stating those boundaries and also to finding a partner who's willing to meet you in them. And I think it's because of your clarity. Clarity is kindness. When we can be so clear with another human being, then they can decide. That's kind of really what creates, how people assess compatibility. Oh, I can do this with her.
Right. And that's one of the things he says. And I'm very direct in asking for what I want. And that's something that he loves about me. And he always says that. He's like, I love how you always ask for what you want, and it's not from like a needy perspective. I'll be like, I want snuggles now, and I'm like, I'm okay if you are going to say no to the snuggles, but like, I'm going to tell you what I want. I'm going to be very clear about it. And I'm going to be so happy when you give it to me. And I think, he's like, oh, thank God I know how to make her happy because she tells me.
A friend was just telling me that he was hanging out with Dr. John Gray, and Dr. John Gray pretty much said the same thing. He said, men are so delighted when a woman tells him what she needs, and then he can go provide that. And then it makes both parties are happy because they're, they know what to do. Their roadmap is set out, and life can be very uncertain and chaotic. And so to have that like certainty within another human being that they can provide that, and they're going to tell you what they need, is so powerful and so great for relationships. How did you get into the work that this type of coaching, this niche?
So I was working on film crews. I was doing my master's in film. So I was working in the summer and then I was studying in the winter. And I had like my Saturn return, a big emotional breakdown, health burnout. I had chronic fatigue for 5 years. And kind of in the middle of that, I knew I couldn't be doing like 18 hours on film sets. And while I was studying, I was kind of like discovering the world of online marketing. And I was like, I really want an online business because I just love traveling. You know, at this point, my friends and family were scattered all over the world. And I just wanted the freedom to be able to be where I wanted and to also be able to not disrupt my income, and be able to travel. And so when my friend invited me out to help her on her business in Indonesia, in Bali, after I graduated, to help her with social media and like video editing, I put my stuff in storage, bought a one-way ticket, and I like convinced them to give Albors a job. She was a doctor, and they had this like neurofeedback lab that they were kind of using for high performance for the entrepreneurial community in Bali. And so like Albors came and was like their lab assistant with that, and I was working with them. And that's where I discovered that I was good at helping her with her website copy, because I just kind of like was in on a meeting and she was like, oh, you're really good at this. You should like, you could totally do this. Like that job kind of fell apart. As things tend to do when you go to Bali, like everything went off in a different direction. And, but I spoke to some writers out there and I was like, oh, do you really think I could, you know, be a writer and make money from it? And one writer showed me how she had set up her whole, she was a romance novel editor, and she got all of her clients through Fiverr. And so I put up a gig and started getting editing work. Literally, I was selling like $5 gigs to begin with, just like building up my portfolio, slowly putting my prices up. And that's when people started asking me for sales copy. And I, you know, was seeing what other people were offering. And I just discovered I was like really good at it. And that was like how I was making the most money. So I quickly specialized in copywriting, and I wrote for like over 1,000 different types of online entrepreneurs. And that's when I started attracting a lot of coaches as clients. And that kind of introduced me to the coaching industry. And people would send me, you know, websites of people that they wanted to create content like. And I was like, who are all these really cool people like doing really inspiring, life-changing work? And so obviously I ended up in a coaching program. And that's when I discovered, I started doing mindset work specifically around money, because I had just had so many hangups around like pricing, you know, like charging what I thought I was worth, particularly around my, you know, a creative skill, which my whole life I'd been told, don't do anything creative. You'll never make any money doing anything creative, you know? And so that's what prompted me to start like just looking at a lot of those stories, a lot of the emotional, you know, turmoil that was coming up, and like the journey of being a new entrepreneur, really having no business skills, like really just learning as I went. And it worked. And I very quickly replaced my freelance film income purely through writing. And I like was traveling the world, you know, I made my digital nomad dream come true. And I was slowly recovering from my burnout. I was in India for 3 months, and I went home to my mom's for 6 weeks until I was making enough money to finally go back to Canada and reunite with Albors. And then he moved to the US, to New York, where he was doing medical school, and I followed him, and you know, was just like trying to figure out how to be in the US. And I launched my own copywriting agency. So I doubled my income within a year. And I was like, oh my God, like this money mindset stuff, this, you know, it's so important. And I could just see how I could write strategically perfect copy for my clients. But if they had mindset stuff going on in the background, they wouldn't follow through. They wouldn't close the sale. And I just saw that I needed to be offering the mindset with, well, initially I was so, like, it was just blowing my mind how much the mindset work was really shifting my life and my money, that I just launched a coaching business focused exclusively on mindset work for creatives. You know, that was the community. Like I grew up around so many artist friends who were just so broke, but so brilliant and amazing. And that was really my vision. You know, I was like, if we can just figure out this money thing, like the world will change, you know, like if there's money in our hands, and if we aren't just like struggling and like scrimping and having to be so resourceful to do the work that we want to do, and we actually just have cash flow. So I started off launching mindset programs for creatives, and within a year of launching my coaching business, I got to just over a year, I'd got to 6 figures. So I doubled my income 3 years in a row. And I let go of my copywriting, which was, that would just take me more time, the done for you work. And I focused more on coaching, consulting, group programs, like scalable offers that gave me a lot more free time, which was also, another big impulse behind the career changes. I wanted time to work on my own projects and be a creative person, which, I felt like I could never get into the habits and the rhythms when I was working in film. So I started songwriting and like learning music production. I've now written my first book. So, my business has really given me the freedom to just create. I launched my podcast and to just, have a voice and to be impacting the communities that I really cared about. And it was just a like one step at a time thing, just like following my inspiration and yeah, having that kind of like core foundation of mindset work where I'm just really focused on like, what do I really want? And like, what is the money that I need for the things that I want? And yeah, constantly learning and growing and evolving and changing things up to create more freedom and like alignment in the work.
I love how you have surrendered to the dharmic path. I don't usually use those words, but I feel in resonance to that as well. I can rewind back to I spent the first decade of my career in New York City working up corporate jobs. And I remember when I first left my, 6-figure salary job at an agency to go out on my own. And there was a group of girls, we would go to dinner all the time. We called it the Zagat Dinner Club. And one of the girls, this is again a decade. There's a lot of cattiness in your early 20s. And I remember being at the dinner table. And as I was sharing what I was up to with my, first venture was Feminine Weapon, or one of them. I had others as well, but Feminine Weapon, which is women's empowerment. And I remember one of the girls, I was literally right there at the table, turning it to another one and being like, I don't even understand what she's doing. How is she going to make money with that? And I was literally sitting right beside her. I was like, geez. And it is this journey of enfoldment of, not to use another buzzword, but like breaking out the matrix and finding your own way and finding what gifts that you have inside of you. So thank you for following the signs. What did you think of the Love Club?
So it's kind of funny. I recently, just moved to LA. My best friend out here is like the ideal client for the Love Club. So as you're sharing it with me and talking about it, I'm getting all these bells going off in my head of like, yes, like this is what people need, like I've just been hearing her conversations of like just the fatigue of the dating apps. And one thing you really said was, I was like, oh, this is so true of her. Like one of the reasons why she is in resistance with the dating apps, like she's trying, like she had been trying and she'd been going on dates, but then she just like couldn't be bothered to follow up, or she'd meet this one guy and then just like, I never went through that because me and Albor's met before, like I was ever on a dating app. But just seeing like the amount of resistance to kind of setting up these dates and going out and meeting new people. And obviously it is a big energy and time expenditure and just being in that judgment process of like, how do I know if I should invest more time with this person or not? And so I can see how draining it is. But like the truth really came out when she was like, I want a story. Like, that's what you said. I want a good story of like how I met someone. I don't just want it to be that we met on a dating app, because she's a romantic and, I totally get that. And I'm sure that a lot of people are like that, even though I think, it is romantic no matter how you meet. And there are so many success stories from dating apps. And just seeing her like trying to enroll people into helping her and being like, you need to set me up with people. And so I can just see how something like the Love Club meets that need where you want to be connected to somebody through your existing community, because that's kind of like a filter already, right? Like if you're in a certain place around a certain set of values, around people who love growth and spirituality, are like invested in working on themselves and, you know, prioritizing the things that are important to them and getting support, you know, just valuing community and being in a space like that where you feel really held and supported in a journey that can feel really hard at times and is obviously going to bring up a lot of stuff for you to work on. And yeah, just having not only the network of support, but also the network of people who you have already kind of been through a filter, like beyond just a dating app filter. You know, I think there's something really, really valuable about that. And kind of bringing that matchmaking in, but just like stacking the odds, you know, like when you connect to a community, you are instantly connecting to so many more people. And the way that you facilitate that and create support around that, I mean, it's not something that I've done too much research into, but I've never seen anything like that before. And I think your vision was so clear from the beginning. Like, obviously, this is something, yeah, you, like you said, you've been sitting on for a while and you just had such a clear vision, such a clear intention. You had like a very, very detailed plan. So you've obviously put a lot of love and thought into this. And I think most importantly, I can see that you're like really an embodiment of the work. And that's how, you know, you put out a sales page and have like tons of applications. Is like, this is just really in alignment with who you are and your work and yeah, like your mission and your gifts and what you're here to share. And like, I always like the process that you were talking about, like everything comes from your story, right? Like when you're selling in alignment with who you are and what you embody, everything gets to come from your story. And like the story's there, you know, you've created so many incredible love matches between people. You have so much experience and depth and knowledge in relationships. And so it just, you know, I always tell my clients, like, you really don't need to overthink your offers. You just need to show up and open your mouth or like put the things in place, you know, that you know is going to be supportive for people. And it will be really transformational because that's just who you are. That's what you bring. And so by allowing people in to a container that you've created, like that's just naturally going to unfold in like really magical ways.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for how you helped me structure it all and put it together in those 7 days. Because yeah, as again, there's like a lot of thoughts like swirling around in my head. And I tend to be somebody who lives in the present moment. So I always will sort of forget about the decade of experience that I have and to just lay it down and to see it come to life. You know, there's actually so many more testimonials. I think there's just 4 testimonials on that page. I have so many more that I could lay out there as well. To see the brands that I've worked with and the exposure that we received. I've never had one space that I could point people to. And it's something that looking at, you know, I'm proud of myself. Like I can say, wow, like I'm even impressed by that. I open up that website constantly and go back and read it over and over and over. And even how you inspired me to get the story out, like that opening of my journey and where to begin the story, because I could have gone back into childhood. I did. Initially, it was like when I was, 17, my father sat me on the steps of our family home and told me that he didn't love my mom anymore. And I've questioned love. And but then fast forward, it was actually, the dating apps, in 2014 of Tinder became the new hot thing. And I signed up for a dating app for the first time. And I wasn't even really excited to do it in the beginning, but I had friends who I highly respected who are now swiping away. And yes, as you mentioned, lots of couples have met. We all have friends who have met on dating apps. And there's a piece of me that thinks that we've also distracted from stories that would have been created without them if they weren't even in existence, if people were off their phones and they didn't have that as a crutch to lie on. All those hours, like the tons and tons of hours accumulated since, Tinder became popular a decade ago. Prior to that, it was OkCupid, Coffee Meets Bagel, Match.com. So the amount of time and energy that people have spent on over there's that energy could have been spent on saying hi to people at the grocery store. And that's essentially what being a part of the Love Club is. Yes, it's not necessarily that you're going to join the Love Club and your perfect love match is also going to be in the Love Club, but it's that the Love Club will be opening up their networks and their Rolodex, and they'll be aiming to introduce you to other people. Some people will tell me like, yeah, my friends, I tell them I'm single and I introduce my friends and I was like, oh, cool. When's the last time you introduced your friend to somebody? And then they stop and they just stare at me blankly and they're like, you're right. I can't remember the last time I did that. It's because there isn't necessarily a container to do it. Mm-hmm. But then once you start to bring people together in that way, it amplifies an energetic that you are more inclined to be out at, say, Air One, which is where we started doing Shop and Shag Monday night, single shop at Air One in Venice, California. But it's, that is when you're more inclined to tell people, I'm part of the Love Club. What's the Love Club? Oh, it's an intimacy accelerator. And that is, there's something that activates an essence of radiance inside of us. And that's for both men and women. The other night I was watching, I remembered there's this one woman show called The 4-Man Plan. She actually wrote the book. It's called The 4-Man Plan too. And her advice is that for women, when you're dating, you should always have 4 men. And it's so you don't put so much focus and attention on one person. And that's sort of what the Love Club can do. It's like, but it doesn't necessarily need to be 4 men. It's that you have a whole entire group of humans that are supporting to not feel alone in your intimacy journey. Because it's like, when you're hungry, it's like you put a plate of food in front of you and you're so hungry because you haven't eaten. Sometimes you're going to devour it all and you're going to put so much attention onto that food. Similar to if we are stagnant in our intimacy journeys and we're not maybe meeting a lot of people, you meet somebody and you're like, you're the one, I want to be done with this. And you haven't given the appropriate time to let the connection evolve, to really see what's there. And that's my favorite thing. I think that you can look at somebody. I love how you and Abort, you looked him in the eyes and you saw love instantaneously, but then a whole journey unfolded within that connection that over time, it became more clear through shared experiences and through, moving through different stages of life that we can actually be partners. You can actually be take the most important role, be cast into the most important role in my life, because you're giving this, this is like, you're hiring your partner. And you can't let it just be anybody. It shouldn't just be anybody. It's a really important job. And so, yeah, I'm so excited to have, for me, even in my love journey, to be sharing this with a group of people in this way, to be bringing in, the some of these great facilitators. And I think because I've been doing this work for a decade, I've already noticed I've built in an affiliate program. And these groups have already come to me and be like, is there an affiliate plan? I'm like, I'm going to get it out soon. But they're like, I want to tell everybody about it as well. When I get on the call with somebody who has applied, and we'll do an interview after they apply, they get off the call. And I had to call, this morning with a woman, and she's like, I sent it to 7 of my girlfriends. Yes, I want us all to do it together. So to feel the excitement and the feedback around it. Yeah. And then all the perks, I am blessed that I have these opportunities to speak on these large stages. The Biohacking Conference, the Wonderland Conference coming up, Unleash Transformational Festival. And I facilitate the Dating Dojo and Playful Portal and some other experiences at these conferences. And now I get to take the people of the Love Club there and also use these experiences. Like when I'm negotiating to be a speaker at these events, I'm like, my Love Club members have to come too. You're going to give them tickets to this event. Like I'm negotiating on their behalf. So there's going to be so many surprises for everybody with inside the common club. And, going back to the money mindset thing, if you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard me share about my challenges with money. I mean, Sarah, you know this, like I, are working together. I went and borrowed money so I could work with you because there was no roadmap to working in love, which is it's a creative industry. There was no one for me to follow and say, this is the way to do it. We deepen our initial, business model is to build a system where, that a platform that brings all of the social and transformational experiences that help you have a more meaningful, loving relationship education, these brands, these facilitators, sort of like the class pass for the relationship industry. But in order to do so, I have to raise funding, build a tech product, and do so much with it, which is the direction I was going pre-COVID. We had raised funding, and then that all shifted and changed. And now I've been bootstrapping for some time to make it all work. And then seeing this as a solution to resource me so I can really do the work that I love to do and really support people inside of this is such I feel like I've been telling people, I'm like, I'm getting a salary. I'm getting paid to do what I love to do and support people in the relational journey. And typically matchmaking is this one-on-one experience. And while we deepen, we launched a matchmaking database, and I have worked privately with a few clients this past year. There's no incentive for me to really, because there's no start date, and there's no incentive for me to rush out to the world and be like, hey, with urgency, sign up for this program. Let's do this all together. And also to the one-on-one dynamic, it kind of gets boring. I have all the pressure to find you and your soulmate and to amplify your love life just by myself. Mm-hmm. I'd rather share that with an entire community and network who I have access to, and bring it all together. And that's what I'm getting to do within the Love Club. And I'm so grateful to be entrusted with this job. And also put it all together. So thank you for supporting in that way.
So welcome. And I think, one thing I've seen over and over again for myself is when I want something, when I just do my best and take action and consistently put energy in that direction, it unfolds. Right. And I've had this conversation with friends too. It's it doesn't really matter how you get there, as long as you're moving towards it. And I think this is just such a fun way to feel like I'm taking responsibility for creating what I want in my love life. I'm investing in myself. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm taking action, I'm putting myself out there. I see this with clients in business all the time. It's we'll work on a launch. They'll be putting social media copy out, and then dream clients start to show up as out of nowhere, kind of like you showed up for me, you'd never see my social media. You just turned up on my couch, or someone will show, I'll sit next to someone on the bus, or, people start to show up when you start putting energy in the direction that you want to go. And it just creates momentum, and it creates magnetism, especially when you're having fun. It's so important to just be having fun, getting towards what it is that you want.
And another thing, throughout the years, I have an extensive network of the most amazing people around me, and I'm a likable person. So throughout the years, they've wanted to help me, but they weren't quite sure how. And now that there's this offer out there, I'm noticing that people are sharing it. They're, friends in relationships for now. They're like, thank you for giving me something to help you. And it's spreading around. I mean, we're recording this on a Tuesday. I hired you last week, probably 10 days ago. And Sunday night, I put out the offer and the website for the first time. We have over 25 applications. The website has been visited over 500 times by unique visitors. And there is this energy and momentum picking up around it. And that's kind of my sign. You're doing it, Christina. And I've been speaking about it for some time and telling people it was going to be the Epic Love Club. And then it just became the Love Club, and it's about having healthy relationships. So I'm so grateful for you. I'm so looking forward to continuing to work together. Because now that, we're in the enrollment process, and then we'll be in the delivery process. And I want to keep what I've been curious about is like, oh gosh, this cohort is going to start the first week of December, and then New Year's is going to happen, and so many people. Do you know the first Sunday after New Year's historically, that evening is the most popular time throughout the year that people are on a dating app.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's actually very specific. 8 to 9 p.m. on the first Sunday after New Year's is when you're going to get an overpopulated time period on dating apps. And so I know that in January, people are going to be reaching out and be like, I want to join the Love Club. And I keep thinking, I'm like, oh, did I do too long 6 months? How do I do open enrollment? Bring more people into it. So these are kind of questions that I'm going to get to unpack with you through this journey, because I don't want to be like, nope, too late. You have to wait till July of 2024. And it probably won't even be July of 2024. That's actually June of 2024 is my aim to do the first Relate Fest. Or actually, it's not the first Relate Fest. That'll be the second annual Relate Fest. But the first time that Relate Fest is, I'm taking over that brand and now developing what will be the Comic-Con for the relationship industry. And I do own Relate Week, because somebody recently in Venice, California, when I was there after the burn and was at the Kin, shout out to the Kin in Venice, a co-working space there. Somebody had mentioned to me that his business launched during Tech Week. And I was like, Tech Week? Why is there not a Relate Week? And I went to GoDaddy, put it in. We own relateweek.com. So the Love Club is, members of it are going to essentially, I'm going to continue bootstrapping in the relationship industry. And so you're going to be a way for me to create Relate Fest, a way to birth Relate Week. You're supporting the love movement as as a member of the Love Club.
Let's spread the love.
Spread the love. Spread the love. Sarah, if somebody wants to find more about you and your work, where should they go?
Thank you. My website is withsarahmac.com. My podcast is Creative Magic Club. And so is my Instagram handle, and all of my other socials you can find through my website. So please connect, reach out. I would love to meet you.
Amazing. I'm going to link all that in the description of this podcast, so you can find that there. And I believe you offer a discovery call if somebody is interested in working with you.
You know what? I don't usually my content does the selling for me, but because we had that connection and I really wanted to connect with you. But I'm always having conversations and voice chats and DMs. And yeah, I'm more than happy to, I'm here as a resource to communicate and help direct you to what it is that you need. So just reach out.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thank you everybody for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. And I would love to have you join us in the Love Club. I'm linking that below, but you can go to wedeepen.com. It links straight to wedeepenloveclub.com. So either way is your pathway to it. Apply to join. You can reach out to me if you have questions. Send me a DM on Instagram at Christina Weber. And I'm so excited to be in this journey with you. So grateful to you, Sarah. And remember, if you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, rate, subscribe, follow it. It helps more people find it, helps more people to join the Love Club. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now. I love you.